Hello and welcome to another episode of Dumb and Dumbest with me, Matt Bacon, and my beautiful co-host, Curtis Dewar.
Wonderful.
Sure. This is a music industry podcast where everything is terrible and the house is on fire. Today we actually have our second ever guest on the show, my friend Keith from Ghost Cult Magazine. Say hello, Keith.
Hello, Keith.
How do you say your last name, Keith?
I say my last name as Chachkes, but since it's a made-up American name from Ellis Island, any name you say is fine.
Cool.
That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to look at it. I appreciate that. How the hell are you?
I am fantastic. How are you guys?
I'm doing good.
Tired. So I guess to start, for those who aren't familiar with who you are and what you do, how would you kind of sum that up?
I like to describe Ghost Cult Magazine, which I am the chief editor and owner of, as you know, everybody is familiar with the major music websites, especially that cover heavy music, Metal Sucks, Metal Injection, Blabbermouth. We are the alternative to those sites. We do some of the same things they do. We do some things differently. I don't really see it as a competition. We're in our own little universe. We're very unique. We started out as a magazine in Europe 6 years ago. I joined about a year into it as the senior editor of the US after running music websites and metal websites for other people. And I took it over a short time later, and I have been the owner since 2013.
Cool.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Is there still a European contingent?
There is a huge European contingent. We have writers and staff. My associate editor, who's my number 2, is in the UK. I have a ton of staff writers and photographers there. Several places in the UK, the Netherlands, Scandinavia, Belgium, as well as my American crew that I still help manage, and a few other people elsewhere in the world, Canada, and other places.
Cool.
I'm not entirely sure Canada is real, so I'll take your word for it.
Fake. It's all a figment of your imagination, Matt.
Yeah. Point being, how do you, I guess just sort of for curious listeners, how do you organize something like that? Where does the idea come from? How do you discipline yourself to create all this? Where does that end come?
It is a bit of an undertaking, and one of the things I had to learn myself as an entrepreneur is delegation. I had to learn there are skill sets I have that are unique and special to me, and there are things that I do that other people can do just as well or better than I, and I need to step aside and let them do something so this thing can function and run. We do a lot of work with Google Docs. We share information, spreadsheets, lists, calendars all across the world with my staff and myself. We send out lists of albums to review, and sometimes we pick out, we typically assign work. There are a handful of expert level people I will let pitch me, as I have worked in magazines and websites for a long time. So in my role as editor, I will allow people to pitch me things, but almost 95% of the time we are assigning work, which means we are also liaising with labels and publicists all over the world. This is how I met Curtis originally, and through his fine work and his great bands that we love supporting. And it is quite an undertaking. I have to stay on top of it and as organized as I can, or else it all goes to nil.
Yeah. When you're putting so you basically decide what runs on the day-to-day.
I do.
Yeah. When you're doing that, what separates one press release or record, from a band you've never heard of from another?
I'm glad you asked that, because this is a daily battle for me. I get, because actually of the uniqueness of Ghost Cult and the fact that we are a global organization, many people, I get double the press releases of just about anybody I've talked to and asked. I have sometimes duplicates and sometimes unique individual press releases for the same band multiple times a day, because over 15 years as a journalist, I've had several emails. I have several emails for different functions at Ghost Cult that all filter into my main editor@ghostcultmag.com email address. And in terms of picking a band, are you referring specifically to all bands or unsigned bands, underground bands?
All bands.
All bands. So there's a criteria. Let's say first, there's our own house content that we create: reviews, interviews, concert reviews, photo sets, etc. Other kinds of specialty pieces and features that we write and publish weekly. And then there's news. And I am also currently wearing the hat of news chief, although other people can contribute news. And we certainly welcome people to submit news to us if you have some breaking news you'd like us to share. And so basically every day, sometimes the night before, things I know that we have in the can ready to go, I schedule them, I prepare them, I edit, I do a final edit on them. I will create a schedule for myself for the next day, or usually a week out or a month out. There are calendars also for that. We know the album release cycle well in advance, so clearly we're planning that the whole way. And then in terms of news, major bands or bands that we feel are important will get some priority. And then obviously huge breaking news, the unfortunate passing of someone, something major. A band with a tremendous following has a news story, for example, in a seemingly innocuous story about Slipknot starting their own haunted house, or once again having a haunted house in Iowa this month. Sean Crahan, the Clown, number 6, dropped some interesting information about the next Slipknot album process, as well as the ongoing work on a deluxe reissue of All Hope Is Gone, which is 10 years old this year and is not yet released. That news came out. I think it was published in the Des Moines Register, their local paper, at 8 at night. I was pretty much done for the day. The story fell into my lap. I published the story. Sometimes it's a lot easier than that. Sometimes it's not.
Yeah. And that's a lot. Like when I kind of shifted away from music journalism to focus more on being a music industry guy, I blocked a lot of people sending me shit just because I was so tired of the fire hose.
Surely.
How does a band, like an unsigned band, break through the fire hose of information being thrown at you?
Another great one, Nat. Surely part of this is process. A band, obviously we solicit bands we welcome bands to come reach us. We have always had a bit of underground and unsigned band coverage. Surely bands that have a publicist we have a relationship with have an automatic in, because we'll consider anything from a publicist we work with and respect and like their track record. But an unsigned band, there's several key things. Approach us correctly. Don't send me an email asking me permission. Just send me an email. Keep it to the basics.
Yeah.
Hello, here's who I am. Here's my band. Here's what genre we fall into, or for fans of, which a lot of journalists like and publicists do. This is how I can understand who your band is and what subgenre you fall into, and if you're appropriate for us. That also makes me think you have looked at our website and know what we cover, which isn't strictly rock and metal. That's what we're known for, but we also cover all kinds of other music. It just depends on the band and our judgment on the quality of said band. Please send me all the information so I don't have to ask you for it, because again, Lord knows I get 1,000 emails a day.
Let me ask you a question. Keith,
Sure.
How should they submit their music to you in that email?
Well said. I'm happy to take Bandcamp links. I'm happy to take private streams. I'm happy to take Dropbox, Google Drive. We send it. Any format is fine. Sorry?
What about attachments?
I don't particularly care for music files as attachments, unless they're zipped. If they're zipped, okay.
Okay.
But I prefer them not.
The bands do that. That's why I wanted to hear it straight from the horse's mouth.
Not a great idea. And here's another thing. There is specific instructions on my website and probably every music website on how to solicit us to check out your band. Please don't veer from said instructions, such as emailing me on my personal Facebook, which I'm not going to see, messaging me on LinkedIn, where I do other kinds of business beside Ghost Cult, because you think you're going to get a little leg up by getting me in a strange place. Just oddly, I had someone text me. How did they get my number? I have no idea. Hey, bro, hoping you could check out my band's music. Not a good approach. Don't be meek and sheepish. Just ask for what you want, and you have a shot.
Cool. So what about WAV files attached to the email?
Not a great thing, typically, because virus checks and things like that. I have a pretty high security on my laptop. Not a fan.
They take an hour to download.
Forever, man.
Yeah. Some of those are some of the common mistakes that I see. Now, Matt, were you done with your question to Keith? Because I had another one.
Oh no, I just think it's interesting that you're willing to accept downloads. Like, I will literally only take streams at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I can't swear that I download. I'd say that's also in my role as the chief editor. I actually try to listen to everything that goes on the site in some way, shape, or form. Every album that's reviewed, everything we consider, I try to listen to a little bit of everything or all of the major ones. So that's a lot of music to listen to. Now, that happens to be my passion, so it's easy for me to do. I am listening to music in every second that I can in my life. But at the same token, again, understand that is the job of the main person picking and choosing who gets heard. And, the approach is half the battle.
Now, just to clarify, if someone wants a review, they shouldn't be approaching you. It's Steve they should be approaching, correct?
I'm sorry, can you just repeat that again?
If a band does want to approach Ghost Cult for a review, they should be approaching Steve, not you, right?
Well, I would say this. Steve Tovey, my associate editor, handles his main responsibility is actually handling the review staff. So in terms of a publicist, yes, they should approach Steve. You would be surprised. I get a lot of stuff that just comes right to me in terms of unsigned and unaffiliated with publicity bands. I suppose they could reach Steve. They seem to not find him. They seem to find me.
Yeah, you're a little bit. I think your email's out there is probably what the thing is, but I could be wrong on that. But okay, so go to Steve if they can, but if otherwise, go to you. That's the correct information.
Yes, the actual official email address for anybody listening to this podcast is submissions@ghostcultmag.com.
And we'll put that in the episode notes.
Sure.
Okay, now
here comes another 1,000 emails a day.
What about people that want to write for the site? Like, how do they get are you accepting writers?
I am.
Right.
I am indeed always looking for new blood. It's kind of hard because in the Reddit age, in the internet age, everybody thinks they have an opinion and thus they are a writer. I actually come from a journalism background. Steve used to write for Terrorizer and other metal magazines in addition to his career. We've had other senior editors in the past who also had writing backgrounds, and many of our writers have come from a writing background or showed an interest in, not just I'm a good writer and I'm passionate about music and I understand and love music. That's not enough. You have to actually be able to formulate an educated opinion that is not just drivel and anger. I am very angry at this subgenre or band. Not helpful. We're actually trying to educate people. We love music. I think this is the difference between our website. There are websites, we all know them, that just seem to hate bands and hate music because they hate everything. And I don't understand how they stay in business. You can't like and love every single thing you hear or review. That's not possible. There are definitely most records are average. Some records are really exceptional. We have a very high grade rubric to judge an album's quality in a process that's always being refined. But yeah, we take this very seriously. Anybody that's looking to write for us, we're always looking for photographers. We have a staff of 54. Just added our 54th person to work with us, which I'm really excited about in a market where I haven't had an actual dedicated person in some time, Philadelphia. So I'm pretty excited about that. And anyone who wants to join the cult can email me at jointhecult@ghostcultmag.com or at my personal email address, editor@ghostcultmag.com.
Again, in the episode notes.
Now I have a question, if I may ask it, which is basically I want to know, like, have you ever had anyone get mad at you for giving a bad review?
Oh, have we? We had a very famous case just this year of a very well-known band on a, I would call, mid-level metal label that everyone knows.
Mm-hmm.
And they, you know, we don't trash albums. If we don't like an album and we give it a low grade, the basis is that the writer has to justify the reason. It can't just be an assault, even if something is offensive to you. We have done a bad job as editors if we give you something you really, really hate or disgusts you, or a genre that's not appropriate for you to review. There are definitely people out there, and again, like I said, just like everybody who holds up a machine and points it at a stage is not a photographer of bands. They are holding a machine at the stage. There are people who are artists with a camera. I'm pretty fair. I'm not an artist, but I have taken a lot of photos of bands. And in terms of reviews, we do, again, we take this seriously, but we had a band take extreme exception with us, call us out on their Facebook, shared our review with a "go fuck yourself" Ghost Cult. And it caused quite a row. Our staff was pretty pissed. I defended my writer, who is a veteran journalist of many websites. Her work has been featured in Noisy and Pitchfork, and as well as Ghost Cult and other places, and Brave Words. And the nerve of this band, you know, there's going to be bad reviews. If you don't have a tough skin, you're not going to make it in this business. And this band has made it. They have a over 10-year career, multiple bands, well-known bands. You would know this band. And we were pretty pissed off. We took it in stride. A lot of people did rally to us and like, look at these chuckleheads. I can't believe they did this. This is unprofessional. And their label apologized to me. Their publicist profoundly apologized to me. And I let the writer know this, because my job is to let writers write, one, and two, protect my staff.
Well, if you ever get something that you feel is too critical from a writer, you don't let them submit it then, or you do and you just tone it down, or what? Like critical.
I'm trying to think of a case. There have been a couple of cases where I went back to the writer before publishing, gave some feedback. I might talk this over with some of my more senior staff, and kick around some thoughts about this review. You know, grades is a thing we take very seriously. Again, not everything is an all-time classic, and not everything is drivel. So most records fall right in the middle. We do a 10 grade, a 10 grading system of 10, which a lot of websites are going away from. They seem to do 5 or something of that ilk. And we do 10. I feel like 10 is a little more reasonable and understandable. If something is really poor and it's a 4, it's rare, but you know it. If something is really exceptional and it's rare, it's a 10, and you're like, wow, okay. And most of the time you find that most records of all kinds of music seem to fall between a 6 and an 8. Fair to good. One more
time for all the people that don't get it, because I've had clients complain they're not getting 9 reviews.
A 7 is a good review from Ghost Cult. It's not a bad review. Normally, it just means, hey, this is a pretty good record in a genre we like. We found things about it to like. There's a few things keeping it from being absolutely stellar, but there's potential here, and we didn't hate it. A 7 is a good grade. I can't tell you how many times I have had labels ask me. I've also had, here's a fun story, I've had an extremely prominent publicist of a world-renowned legendary band be angry at me over a review that was a 9 out of 10, that was glowing in every single way, and there was one sentence in the review the publicist did not like and asked me to change. And I said, my job is to let writers write, and unless it's really offensive, slanderous, or libelous, wrong, incorrect information, I'm not going to change it. It was a personal preference of the writer to frame a band in a certain way. They sort of gave, not a backhanded compliment, but sort of on the way out the door, his little slap on the wrist. But otherwise, this thing is a 9 of 10 is a pretty great record, probably, that everybody will agree on.
That's freaking
and this publicist has held this against me for years because I wouldn't change it. But that's how I was taught, and that's how I roll.
How many 9s out of 10s do you get a year, out of curiosity? Do you guys actually get
maybe 15 or 20. I don't think it's a lot. It's certainly less than a lot of other sites that just fawn over everything. I saw a quote yesterday about a single from a band I love, and an extremely well-respected journalist that I really look up to and I follow said, this is going to change the game, this single, and this band has never done a better song ever. And I was like, hyperbole much? It's a little much. I love that band and I love that song, and I played that song about 10 times yesterday in a row because I get fixated on things and I listen to things over and over to absorb them when I get a chance. And I was like, yeah, this is amazing, but not the best thing they ever did, and certainly not going to change music. Let's tone it down. And this isn't a really beloved writer in our genre. So, it takes all kinds. I was taught to judge very slowly. Writers really have to justify their opinions. They need to be based on things, based on facts, based on history of a band. And a lot of times I think a person loves a genre, loves a band so much, they get really excited about new music and they just gush. And that's fine, because I want real opinions. I want writers to tell me how they feel. We trust people to do that. If I wanted to write every single review myself, I could not possibly, although I write a ton of stuff weekly as it is myself. But if I wanted every opinion to be just like mine, I would write everything, and it would be a really boring, it'd be ghostkeefy.com, and it'd be very boring instead of Ghost Cult Magazine. It'd be very boring.
Before I forget the question, sorry if I cut you off, Matt, because I thought I heard you about to say something.
But it's okay. I'll be disappointed.
Well, I keep having all these questions. I keep forgetting them because Keith's giving all these good answers. So physical submissions, do you want them, not want them? Why or why not?
Well, being a guy that was in a band for 20 years, rather unsuccessfully, in the age before the internet and digital streaming and downloads, I did everything guerrilla style. This is actually my music career is what inspired me to go into marketing, actually. And that's my regular day job is in marketing. And I'm actually an expert at digital marketing and social media. But I do appreciate that bands want to send us physical things. I also am an everyman concerned with the little guys. So I don't want a band to have an expense of sending me a vinyl unless they really have one to spare that they have created an allotment of, physical media to give to me press. Then I'm greatly appreciative. Some labels still will send you, hey, you reviewed our album, let's send you one. That's very thoughtful, and I really appreciate that. But also, there's also kind of a consumerist angle here, which is, and I am a music collector and fan forever. I have a bunch of vinyls. I sometimes pre-order an album from a label I like, from a band I like, even if I think I probably could ask and get a copy myself for free. But I don't do that. I want to support the bands. I go to shows and I still buy merch. Even if it's something that doesn't fit me or isn't quite right for me, I give it away as a present because I want to support these bands in every way I possibly can. To answer the question, bands that want to send me materials, that's fine. Then I like to be asked first, hey, could we send you something? Or, hey, we appreciate you. Can we send you something physical? And then, we have a mail drop for that.
Does it improve their chance of getting a review, though? Because I get asked that question quite a bit, and it seems to me it doesn't, but you tell me.
I'm going to say no, because ultimately a couple of things. Here's the real factors that everybody should know. It's about time, and it's about your approach to me. So there have definitely been some bands that I just don't even fathom why. One of the reasons I actually like you guys and I like this podcast so much is you give practical advice to bands, bands you work with, bands you like to work with, and just everybody. You're giving a service of value. And I think the most important thing you can do is don't make these mistakes. So the approach is everything. That would be the main thing I think everyone should take away from listening to your podcast is, learn how to approach, whether it's labels, whether it's management, whether it's venue owners, tour promoters, and website owners. Learn how to approach people. Approach is everything. I don't think sending me a physical thing is necessarily it because it's about quality, whether it's something appropriate. I'd get sent stuff that's just not appropriate for Ghost Cult all the time. I don't know why. They think, hey, randomly, maybe they'll like this and run it. Did you look at our website? Have you followed us on social media? That's another thing. I will say that a lot of people seem to write to me personally, and they don't seem to know who Ghost Cult is when I ask them questions about the site or things we've covered or bands like them we've covered. Mm-hmm. So what more than sending me an actual vinyl or stickers or merch or anything, how about liking Ghost Cult on social media and sharing some of our posts about bands you like? We cover enough different subgenres. We're bound to cover something everybody likes. support my website. I'm just like a band, you know, website owners are just like a band. I have a service I'm trying to get out in the world, and, you know, help us out. Maybe we'll be more apt to help you out.
What about Matt's approach of buying people drinks? Would that work with you?
That definitely works with me.
Oh, it does.
I am a cheap floozy, and I like decent beer and occasional whiskeys.
Now you're gonna get a bunch of drinks ordered for you next time you go out.
I will be in Philadelphia tomorrow for Life of Agony. Somebody buy me a drink there, and I might check out your band.
Matt has to upload this tonight then.
Oh, I'll upload it tonight. People will hear it tomorrow afternoon.
It's all good.
But one thing I want to
kidding.
ask, this is like a serious kind of maybe more intellectualized question. And this is something I've struggled with because I don't do it on my blog, Two Guys Metal Reviews, but I do it on Metal Injection. Giving number ratings. I'm really not a fan, but it sounds like you are. And it sounds like my cat is too.
As a rule, cats tend to like a number system. You know,
can you hear him?
I can. Back in the day, I would say I used to work for a little website that's no longer around. It's defunct. It was called Metal Army America.
I remember that.
One of the first places I had a gig. It was actually very lucrative at one point as a journalist to work for them. They were basically the blabbermouth light run by Century Media Records, whom I have a great affinity and history with. And at one point I ran that website, and many great writers everybody knows, Chad Bauer, Grim Kim, they all came from there at one point, or passed through there even briefly. And so that, you know, that website was originally, I think they had done a letter grade, and just most records ended up being a D or a C. And it was like, wow, people can't understand that a C is not terrible. It's midway decent. It's average. The average record is average. Average is not a slight. Your band is average. You have some potential. This is not dreadful. This is pretty decent in a genre that works for this website. And so, again, there's a failure to understand. Not every record is going to be a timeless classic. A timeless classic is a 9.5 or a 10. A record that's really excellent right now in this scene may not hold up in 5 years, could be an 8, 8.5, or 9. So we ourselves, again, evaluate the grading process all the time. We take it very seriously. We work on this very strenuously. I actually spent quite a bit of time up last night listening to a record I might not listen to out of my comfort zone. But my writer gushed over this record, felt it was like a genre changer. I wasn't sure. And I connected over email with Steve across the pond in the UK, and he and I traded some emails back and forth about this review. My own staff will be listening to this, I'm sure, and wonder who it is. And, you know, we take this very seriously because people read this, publicists read this. I can tell you for all the 9s and 10s we've given out, it hasn't necessarily lit the world on fire. You know, publicists we have long relationships with, they seem to like us, they like what we do, but I don't think it helps us, you know, certainly for website and journalists, let bands know, you know, if we happen to love your record, that doesn't help us get that review into the world any better either, just because it's positive. People seem to equally love terrible and great things on the internet, if you haven't noticed.
Terrible reviews seem to almost do better a lot of the time because they're so rare.
Based on terrible reviews myself.
Like, look at Angry Metal Guy.
I don't know. I looked at Angry Metal Guy for a long time, and some of those reviews, actually one of their guys for a long time was also a writer with me, and his reviews with me were a lot different. You know, sometimes it's about the website.
Yeah,
some websites, the tone. Some websites out there just seem to troll, and I don't understand why or how. Why would you spend the time and effort it takes to write a raging, angry review? This is the worst thing ever. Okay, tell me why. Just tell me why. It can be the worst thing ever. Everybody's allowed their feelings. You know, if you really hate black metal and I give you a black metal album to review, it's probably going to be bad because you're not the appropriate person to review a black metal record if you dislike the genre so much that you break out in hives. So as an editor, I have a responsibility. And I feel like I used to be in a band and I had some unfavorable reviews by people who didn't get what we were doing. And not every bad review means they don't get you. Sometimes your stuff is bad, by the way, which is why I didn't end up having a long career in the music business, although I played music for 20 years and I went to music school and I was a prodigy. And sometimes, hey, bands, you can undermine yourself with bad, you know, just bad things, bad form, bad behavior. I have checked out bands and you look through their social media and seen some terrible things that made me not want to review them or cover them. It's happened. I try to keep politics out of it, but sometimes you can't.
Yeah. We talk about that a lot, keeping the politics out of it.
It's not always possible.
Yeah, no, I agree. But now tell me this though. So if a band is posting inflammatory comments on their social media, you're less likely to review them or less likely to give them a positive review, or both, are you're saying then?
I would say inflammatory comments is a very broad term, and it kind of just depends on what inflammatory comments we're talking about. So here's a good example from history. I had a band reach out to me and say, hey, we really love your website. Could you check us out? Here's all the links to our stuff. Here's a Bandcamp code to download our music. Check out the music first, because that's what I tend to gravitate to. Love the music. Look through some of their stuff. Straight up New World Order Nazi stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, out in the open, they're friends, themselves. Ha, ha, ha. You're right. Race war. Let's do it. Not funny. Not cool, not funny. If you want to be a racist, hey, be a racist, but please don't do it in public and don't do it on my time and then ask me to cover your band. So it wouldn't give a band a bad review. There's plenty of bands and entire celebrities who I dislike and don't like their opinions about things. But that's not going to affect my review of them. It's going to affect them getting reviewed at all if you are just a dick and intolerable and insufferable as a human being. People are trolls. People like to troll their friends. People like to troll their audiences. There are bands out there that seem to be playing a very long gag on their fans sometimes, whether it's with music or words, like a constant carrot to try to get attention, and sometimes it works. I don't care for that myself, but it just depends. I'm talking about like real, cardinal offenses I can't deal with in my personal or professional life, and I'm not going to use the space of my website to promote hatred or intolerance ever.
Now, as another question, one thing I notice a lot of on Twitter, at least, is journalists getting into politics and just fighting about politics. Do you think that's a good idea or a bad idea? I think it's bad because I don't think you should alienate anyone. But I'm your opinion on it.
I think individually, especially if you're under your own name and your own personal brand, as we all are, you have some latitude. I'm not going to say that I have never made a political post, for example, on Ghost Cult Mag at Twitter, but it's rare when I have. But I have at times. Mostly I save that for Ghost Cult Keefe, which is my personal Twitter account for Ghost Cult as the editor of Ghost Cult. But I definitely flavor it with some personal musings about the business. I also have my main Twitter handle that I've had for many years that's just kind of my catch-all for social media and my professional persona, which is @Keefe, the highly sought-after @Keefe. Once a month, somebody offers me money to give them my handle, somebody named Keith, probably, who likes to be called Keefe. There's a rapper called Hollywood Keefe that once sent me a very lucrative offer I turned down.
Really?
It's got to add some zeros, bruh, for me to give up my Twitter handle that I've had since 2008. It's not happening.
That's funny. Your turn, Matt.
I'm just wait. You've had the same Twitter handle since 2008. That's impressive.
My original plain old Twitter handle, which again I prefer not to get Ghost Cult stuff at, since Ghost Cult has 2 Twitter handles and multiple staff that are always on Twitter, including Steve. At Steve XIII. STEEVXIII at twitter.com. So I prefer to not be courted on Twitter. I do get some DMs with bands. Hey, check out my band. I'm like, here's the link, submit there. And especially, again, I think it's kind of egregious when I go to such lengths to try to make myself available to labels and bands and festivals and new people popping up every day with products and things they want me to consider to sell or run or promote and or advertise. And please don't hit me up on my LinkedIn or my personal Facebook when you have many avenues to reach me.
Oops, I did that today.
No, that's different. We're friends, and you guys are friends of mine as well as colleagues, and you get an exception. But strangers, you're never going to get seen, and I'm going to be less receptive right out of the gate.
I thought I was being given shit there, and I was like, oh, no.
Not at all, sir. Not at all. We're in the circle of trust.
Good. Just making sure.
Curtis, you're not in my circle of trust.
Hey, I gotta ask,
Oh,
if someone say they don't like to be contacted on social media, and I'm contacting them on social media, I just gotta verify, you know?
yeah, of course. But again, I'm talking strictly about unsigned bands, new people. I don't have I have people just connecting with me on LinkedIn. Here's a good thing.
Yeah.
Bands, if you want to make new contacts,
Yeah.
introduce yourself with a short, well-written, succinct message about why. Because if you just connect to me on LinkedIn and I don't know who you are, and my whole resume, except for Ghost Cult, is all about marketing and social media management and social media strategy and digital paid marketing campaigns and things that I have spent over 10 years, 12, 13 years doing. I don't know who you are, and I don't know why you're. I assume it's about music. I assume you might have a band if you got a metal shirt on in your LinkedIn picture and devil horns. It might be about music, but that's not the place to reach me. I've asked that before, so
Yeah. Well,
I'll stop beating a dead horse.
have you ever considered opening like a digital marketing thing for metal bands, like since you do that as your day job, or no?
I have. I've done some marketing. You know, I believe you guys are very famous, or one of the more famous things that I like from your podcast is, you know, everybody that's a journalist at some point thinks they can be a publicist. I love that because it's true.
It is.
And I at one point I've done some publicity, several successful campaigns.
Yeah.
I considered and have been offered some publicist jobs at labels that I thought about even relocating for. But I am really, I think, just like every band, just like every entrepreneur, just like everybody, all of us, you need to know what your expertise is. So I always tell people, as sort of a career coaching thing, understand your 3 areas of absolute expertise. You can have skills in other areas. Matt is a great example of this. He is great at a few things. I think he's very knowledgeable and skillful at many other things, but the things that Matt is trying to succeed at in business, he goes hardcore to promote himself at, as do you, Curtis.
That's
And
very
so
true.
I think this is really good advice, not just for your band, but for life. You have to run your band kind of like an entrepreneur anyway. It needs to be like a startup company, but not so much that you don't also, I can do 100 things. Nobody's going to take you seriously. I can do 3 things exceptionally well that are in my wheelhouse that I'm an expert at. And so I have run some very good digital marketing campaigns. The last one I ran was about a year ago for the Wisconsin death metal band Casket Robbery.
Oh yeah.
Great dudes and a great band. Great dudes and a gal now as the front woman. And terrific band. They have a new EP out. I think they're touring. I ran a very successful launch for their previous EP. Got them some placements in major websites, just, you know, not Ghost Cult, obviously. And we did some paid stuff too, and email marketing as well. So I have thought about it. I have thought about, you know, shifting my attentions to other things. It's never too far. People ask me all the time to give them advice on campaigns or help them advise them on strategy for campaigns. Sometimes I charge, sometimes I don't. Depends on how much work it is.
Yeah. Sounds like what we do.
Pretty much.
Would agree.
Pretty much. As we head towards the end here, Keith, you've given us a lot of your time. What do you have to plug?
As always, I have to plug Ghost Cult Magazine. Ghost Cult Mag at YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. Ghost Cult Magazine on Facebook. And of course, Ghost Cult Magazine, ghostcultmag.com. We're launching a podcast soon. That's going to be a series of interviews with bands, aside from our normal written features or video interviews. Please check us out. Follow us. Give us a like. Follow us on Instagram, where we post news and our concert goings every day. And again, I always appreciate the support. It's a big world out there. You have many music websites to choose, and I'm deeply thankful for anybody that chooses mine.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on this episode of Dumb and Dumbest. You know, we really appreciate your time.
Yeah, we do. That was great. I learned a lot, actually.